Ymt218 Object-Oriented Programming. We are discussing the last chapter, chapter 12, GUI programming or GUI applications, what we refer to by graphical user interface applications in Python. So we will be discussing the first part, which is composed of graphical user interfaces, the idea of interfacing with the computer, the elementary idea, and the up-to-date, you can say, idea, which is GUI, that what we are discussing today. The use of TKInter module, it's one of the modules that we can use for creating GUI applications in Python. It comes along with Python when you install it, so you don't have to include it or install it or add it to your modules in Python. We will speak about basic display of text using label widgets and also organizing these widgets, and we'll speak about the meaning of widgets and also how we can organize widgets using frames. So these are the topics to be discussed today within our first part of chapter 12. Graphical user interface or interfaces are actually means for communicating between human beings, basically, and the computer. We need a way to interface ourselves with the computing ability. And in this regard, we have two main ways. The first one is the command line. Although there are others, but these are the main two, or the common two ways that we have in our reality or in our world. The command line, I think you are familiar with it from the topics of Introduction to Computer Science. You must have studied or gone through command line or the command line prompt, CMD, where you apply some instructions for either accessing directories, creating directories, moving files, and so on. Just basic programming with CMD or what we call DOS system. Okay, so in that case, this kind of command line or interface requires you to know a lot of instructions and type them properly. So it relies on your ability to memorize instructions. If you don't memorize them, though you can get your manual or you can search for them or get them beside you, however, you need to know the instruction, you need to type it correctly. You need to follow the order of the command line. You cannot change it, you have to follow the command line instruction, how it instructs you and what on what and how to input. So this is the first type. The second type came to existence more recently than the command line, around 80s of the last century, which is a graphical user interface. And this is extremely popular to the point that we are actually using it now. This is a graphical user interface. Windows itself is actually one type of graphical user interface as an operating system. Most of operating systems that we are using nowadays are based on graphical user interface applications that we have window based, where we have some components to interact with using mouse or keyboard. And this is the second type, which is more interactive than command line and convenient. It doesn't need you to memorize a lot of instructions, rather it needs your interaction with components. So we speak about components a lot here, and we will see what it means in graphical user interface. Now look at the command line. The command line is actually based on your own ability to write correct instructions to see how the structure of program or the series of steps will guide you to finalize certain task. Let's say for this directory dir, in this case, if you mistype it, somehow it wouldn't work, and you will not be able to move to the next step until you correct or you provide the correct typing. And in that case, you will have some difficulty while programming with those, compared, of course, to GUI applications. All right. So the idea of GUI applications, creating dialog boxes. What we refer to by dialog boxes are a small window type that we see, and they have some components on we can interact with. And these components are actually responsible about our own you can say processing of data, producing of output, or selection of some functionalities or features. So this is the idea of having GUI applications. So we speak a lot about interactions. I will customize this word of interaction soon enough, okay? So look at one of the examples that we have in our computing systems as a dialog box, and you have a lot of components here. These can be components, okay? Some type of special type of buttons. These are other type of buttons, similar to those. We have like sliding level control. We have icons and so on, some images, text. So all these are components. We have also some frame. So we have some frames to organize our data. So we'll speak about those one by one in Python, although we will not go deep to this level. If you want to customize some application by yourself using Python to this level, you can do that. However, you need some like a bit higher level capabilities to include similar things like this. All right, so GUI applications, I said I will customize the interaction soon enough. What we refer to them by event-driven applications or programs. Event-driven means what? They rely on an event to initiate something or to create a response to an event. What could be an event? How about a button click? How about a choice that we make by ticking or checking a box or selecting a radio button and so on? So we have some events to be done in order for us to get a response to them. So that's exactly how GUI applications are expected to operate in this regard. The first module, or this is actually the most common module you can say, comes along with Python when you install it, so you don't have to import it from anywhere, you don't have to add it to your modules. It's called TKInter. So this module allows you to create GUI applications, or what we see as dialog boxes or window graphical user interface. Okay. So in that case, we can use TKInter. We have to import it, and you learn how to import modules. So you can import a module and use it by its name, or import it and use it as some name that you give given name. Okay. You use it to do what? To create what we call widget. The widget in Python is referring to any component that we add to the window that we create. So initially we have to create a main window. It's like a pane that we place our components or elements on. Then we need to create these elements or components. So these elements are referred to by widget. It could be a button, it could be a checkbox, it could be a list of radio buttons, any label, so on. We will go through them basically now. So look at button. Button is actually the same like the one we have in all graphical user application. We have a button to be clicked, and this button allows you to click and receive some action or create some action based on this button click. We have the canvas. Actually, the canvas is related more about the graphical display or the graphics, how you can display or customize based on some area, and it is a rectangular shape that allows you to display it or to create some display of graphics. Check button, this is a bit different, which allows you to have on and off. It's not like a button that you click, actually you check, not click in this case. Entry is an area that allows you to type a single line of text, just one line. So entry is one line. It could be useful for numbers. It's extremely useful for numbers. Frame, it's a container. So imagine we have a window, but we need to divide this window to maybe area or regions. We can create frames, and these frames we can place them on the window based on their own customized region. So we can create this container and place it wherever we like. Place it for what? So we usually place our widgets on certain frame, and then we place this frame in its region on the window. Label allows you actually to display a line of text. or an image. If you want to display an image or a text to a window or a graphical user interface, you can use label. List box is actually a list of selections or choices, if you want to say, or if you want to consider, where you can select among these items. It allows you to select more than one in usual circumstances. A menu actually allows you to choose from a list of choices, or actually a list of options that you have as a menu, and in that case you can just also select from these, or take your own customization based on this kind of list that you have. I'll explain the difference between list box and menu when we start coding, because it seems like what's the difference in this case. Okay, so there is a difference, of course. I'll explain practically. Menu button also, you may create like different types of buttons, or you can say display, that allows you to select or check among these buttons. Message, this is a display for multiple line text. So here, look at this label, one line. For the message, we have multiple line. I mean more than one line. So if you want to display more than a single line, you should use message, not label. We will see practically. Radio button is a button that goes you may have a group of radio buttons, not just one, but if you have one, you will be able to either select it or deselect it. Okay, and usually we have group of radio buttons. When you select one, all others will be off. This is usual, although you can customize other than that, but this is the usual case. You can select one or deselect it and select another one, and so on. Usually we have radio buttons in groups. Okay, scale, similar to this I was telling you about, like a level control. We can move up and down to manage, you can say, the level that we want to apply. Scroll bar is usually used or provided when we have a group of widgets. Like if we want to customize the view of widgets that we have and scroll down and up, not to have all of them on the same window that we have as a view, the part of the window, we can customize it to be scrolled down and up so that we can properly see it. Text, let's say if you want to display not just one line of text, like here, label, you want to display multiple line of text, you can use text instead of label. In that case, it will allow you to display multiple lines of text. Top level is also a container, similar to frame, but it is displayed in its own window, not the main window that we create. It has its own window to be displayed on, and that's the difference between it and the frame. We will try to see all of these practically, one by one. However, I'll explain about them theoretically in a while, at least the first part of them. These are not all the widgets that we have. There are 3 others that I didn't list here, but usually they are extremely limited in use. They are not very popular. These are the popular ones. You would find frame, entry, label, menu, you will find radio buttons, and so on. So these are the popular ones. If you need to go through other functionalities, you can check Python documentation itself. It has a description about the rest of the widgets. I think three more widgets I didn't explain about. All right. How can we use TKInter? It's a module, so we have to import it. This is the first thing. So you will import it to where? To IDLE. If you are going to use IDLE, expect to have usually some problems while running, especially big graphical user interface applications in Python. Why? IDLE itself is actually based on graphical user interface of Python itself. So it's like a component of GUI applications, and in that case, when you run a GUI inside a GUI, expect to get some instability or instability in this case. So it wouldn't be stable the way you expect, especially in big programming applications. For us, within the semester, we may not find a problem because most of our applications wouldn't be that much big projects or systems. However, if you go for programming a whole system in Python, you may need to replace IDLE by the command prompt itself so that you don't get stuck with IDLE instability. Okay. So how do we use it? We can use it by one of two main ways, although I prefer to use the object-oriented programming style. However, I will show you how to use both methods, just the structured programming style and the object-oriented. What do we mean by object-oriented? We create a class for each GUI application. So if you want to create a GUI application, you create a class for it, and then you instantiate that class, and you get your GUI running. However, you can just use the structured way, and I'll show you how to do it. Now look at these two. This is just an example for creating the main window of GUI applications that we see like this with this feather. TK is just the name of this window. Now look, this is the structured way. The first thing we need to do is to import the module itself. Now you can import the module by its name and use it the way it is, like import TKInter, not as TK. You can just limit it without adding as TK, and then you can say window equals to TKInter.tk. So TK here function allows you to get this window. Okay, so this is the main window that we will place our widgets on. All right. So once you create it, you can import it. I prefer to use this this way. It shortens the longer names. So TKInter, I can import it as TK. It makes sense to me. And then I can give a name. Now window is up to you, it's optional, but the name gives a sense or makes a sense here that we have a window to deal with, or a graphical user interface to create. And then we can provide TK, which is actually the module of TKInter, in this case, the sample or the instance. Ask it to create the window by TK function. And in that case, it will be created. If you do it even from the Python shell, it will just come out directly. Well, one more step we should do, we should enter the TK that we created, our window that we created, to the main loop. Main loop means it will run as long as you do not terminate it, either by this terminate button or by any other functionality or behavior. So in that case, it will just keep on running as long as you do not terminate it yourself. All right, or maybe some other program terminates it. How about the object-oriented programming style? We create a class, so you know how to create a class, then class name, and then we create the initializer, the init method. So we receive self by default. We don't have any instance here. We don't have any argument other than self, the instance itself. So instead of having window by itself here, we need to have self.window, or if you want, you can customize it to private by double underscores, and then you use the same. But since we imported the TKInter as TK, we can use tk.tk and to create this. Once it's created, we can use in the main, or not, this is main, not main, this is the initializer. In the initializer, we can use the main loop as well to maintain this window appearance until we terminate it. That's not the end of it. If you do not instance, or sorry, if you do not take the instance or instantiate the class that you created, this window will not come out. Why? Because it will wait for you until you instruct this class to be instantiated, or that means you create an instance of this class. Once you do so, this class, this one, my GUI, will take the reference and pass it here, and then the program or the class will run and create for you this view of output. All right. The first and the most elementary, you can say, component or widget that we have in Python GUI application is the label. The label allows you to display one line of text, and this line of text can be customized the way you like. Now, your TKInter module, or the instance of it that you take, like here, a TK, can be used to create a label by its name with capital L, in this case. And this label accepts two arguments. The first argument is where to be placed. So where we're supposed to place the component or the widget. So if we don't have any other than the main window here, or the window, some people call it main window, by the way, like here. If you like, you can call it window, you can call it main window, or you can, whatever you can call it, like a pane, main pane, or container. Some people can call it container. It's up to you, okay? Window, it makes sense to me. I like to use window because it's actually a part of the window that we are creating. So you have to define or determine where you're placing it, and then what type of text to be provided. So we use text equals to what text we are going to provide. So this equal to the text must be provided, and you need to provide the text to be displayed. And remember that this is single line, just one line. All right, so this follows usually the object-oriented and the structured, so it doesn't matter. But here, since we have self, we are customizing to this style, I mean. Okay, now look at this. This is the structured way. We explain about importing, we explain about creating in the window. Now label, how do we create? We can give it a name, give it the name that you like, or the name that makes sense to you. And then what you need to do, you need to use this instance of the module and create the label. You need to provide two things. Where you're placing it, you have only one window here. So you place it to this window, and then you customize the text. Once you do that, you need to pack it. Pack function here allows you to place this label on this container or window. And then you can enter your window to the main loop so that it carries on operating or running until you terminate it. Once you do this, the window will be like this. The window will shrink. So in that case, what will happen? You will be able to display just one line of text, and can be changed the text that you display based on your own customization of the input. And remember, this is just one line of text, single line of text. So as explained about pack, it determines actually the position of the widget, where we are placing it in the first place, so in this window. But where do you want to place it? Centralized, or left justified, or right justified? Or if you have more than one label, do you want to place it top or bottom? So we have four arguments can be placed. We have side equals, similar to text equals. Here we have side equals to what? Either left or right, or top or bottom. So you provide one of these based on side. So it's up to you. Now this one by default comes centralized. So if you want to move it to left, you need to place here side equals left. Of course, left is a string, so it will be enclosed by either single quotes or double quotes or triple quotes. Anyway, it has to be enclosed by quotations. If you want to be, if you want it to be right justified, you need to provide side to right, and the same goes to top and bottom, right? So look at this. This is like another example of providing hello world or hello Python if you like it. And then you can display more than one label. It's not necessarily that we have one label. If let's say you have more than one label, and in that case, you can pack them based on their own positioning. So where you are interested in positioning them or placing them. So for example, if you don't pack them with any customization, it will be one on top of the other. But if you place them, let's say left justified or right justified, they will be next to each other like this. So if you have two labels and you place them with no pack arguments, they will be like this by default. If you place them with, let's say, right justified or left justified, will be next to each other, either justified to this side. If we extend or if we expand this window, it will appear. That means this part will be either left justified or right justified based on your own customization. This is not efficient. Why is not efficient? Left, right, top, bottom, if I have so many labels and components and widgets, how will I know top and bottom and left and right? Yes, you're right, and in that case, what we need to do is we need to provide a frame. So we need to create a frame to place the widgets that they have common, you can say, scale or common positioning, where then we can customize their place. So we have a smaller container than the window itself called frame, where we can create as many frames as we need and then place the components on the frame instead of placing them on the window directly. And then we place our frame on the window, and we know how to customize also frames. What applies to widgets applies also to frame. So it's a widget. And in that case, what we need to do is we can create our label the way we are creating, and instead of placing it to the window like here, we are placing it to the main window or to the window that we create. We will place it to a frame that we create. So imagine that you have two labels, you place one of them to one frame and another one to another frame. So you can create two frames and place one frame up, one frame down, or top, bottom. Or you may have so many frames, it depends on your application. And this is the idea here. The idea that we are speaking about is creating a frame that will be placed later on the main window or the window itself to customize the view of other widgets. Okay. Now look, for example, this is the top frame. We have two frames here. Okay. The top frame itself has 3 labels, so you may have as many labels as you like or as you need in your program. And then you can place them. You can place the way you like here. You can customize how to place these widgets. You can right justified or left justified, centralized the way they are now. And then you can apply to the same idea to the bottom frame. So we have 2 frames. And in that case, you'll be able to create customized widgets based on frames that placed on the window. And that's usually more powerful. Look at this simple example it created. We have 2 labels, 1 and 2. We created 2 frames for them, top frame and bottom frame. And then we placed these 2 labels on their own frames, top to top, bottom to bottom. And then we placed our customization of packing. So 1 top, 1 bottom, and then we pack the frames. So remember, packing, if you create any widget, you are supposed to pack it. Why packing? Because if you don't pack it up to to where it belongs, do not expect it to be displayed. So that's exactly the case. You need to pack it up at least minimum without providing any argument. If you provide an argument, then you specify where it is placed. The same goes to frame. If you don't provide any argument here, it will be one on top of the other. Okay. Once you pack all your components, then you can enter the main loop, and do not forget the main loop. Although your program is likely to work if you don't enter the main loop, especially from Python shell, but do not expect it to be stable. Maybe instability will occur due to not typing main loop. If you write a separate program from IDLE and you create it as a separate sheet and then try to run it without creating a main loop, I doubt that you would get the main loop. I tried in previous versions. Some of them operate, some actually do not. So you can try it yourself and see how, if you eliminate or exclude window.main-loop, how things will run. But just for your program stability, keep it all the time written. You can try without, a new file you can try from Python shell the way I did here, and see before even you reach to window.main-loop function, your components will show, because it's interpreted language. This is an interpreter based in this case. And in that case, you can just get that comment. You will say, okay, why do I need the main loop? Well, we will see. We will see soon enough why we will need the main loop practically. Okay, so actually this is the end of this part. We have learned about graphical user interface in Python, the widgets, and how we create a container or the window or the main window or the container that we are using for placing widgets. So we explained about the widgets, what they are, the components that we use or the elements that we use in any graphical user interface in Python, and how can we create a graphical user interface from the first place. We can use TKInter. That doesn't mean we cannot use any other module. I repeat again, there are other modules that allow you to create a graphical user interface in Python. However, TKInter is one of the most elementary, come along with Python. You don't have to install anything, you don't have to add any module. And in that case, you can just use it for elementary and basic applications. So we learned how to display text, how to organize its view or placement, and how to place it on a frame and then place the frame on a window or the main window. We will have in our next session later on. Until then, have a good time. Goodbye.